So these are my 2 goat sheds for my 4 pygmy goats who are currently investigating a wheelbarrow. I don't know what's good with them. So the bigger shed on the right is much newer and that one's okay. However, if you look at this shed, it's absolutely destroyed. So today we're going to go through and repair it and make sure it's very safe and actually works as a shelter for the goats. So the main focus is fixing the front window here, which has been destroyed by Oscar, and removing this kind of tarpaulin type thing off the roof because it is destroyed. It doesn't actually do anything, to be completely honest with you. And the goats have completely destroyed it and I don't really need them eating it. Now there are some other problems with the shed that we're not going to fix, and that is obviously the gap here. This wall's coming off. This wall has come off. The door doesn't work. You can see it's all very bent. The roof isn't actually attached to the shed, and there's a couple other things like the goats keep pushing it around. But today we're going to mainly focus on that window because that's the most important part, because that's stopping it from really being a good shelter. Like all the wind, the rain just blows straight through it, which is obviously not really what we need for a shed. To be completely honest, this shed probably could just go in the bin because it is rubbish and really old. But Oscar still uses it from time to time and that's why I want to fix it up. So in an ideal world, I would have 2 of these sheds because they're really, really good. But sadly, they are quite expensive. So my other 3 goats only really use the big shed. And I'm not surprised because it's really big and there's plenty of space for them all in there. So this shed just really works as like a second option for somewhere to go. So for example, Henry doesn't let Oscar in this shed too much. So Oscar can just go in here and chill out, basically. So like I said, I've got 4 pygmy goats. We've got Henry here. You've seen Oscar a lot already, but he's over there. And then we've got my 2 smaller goats, Phoebe and Maya. But we're having problems with Maya. And I think my next video will be about that because it's a bit of an interesting one. Okay, so to do this, we're going to basically just cover up the window with these bits of wood I've got lying around. So we're just going to go through and just do 1, 2, 3 like that. It's going to be superbly simple, but it's just going to mean the wind and the rain doesn't just blow straight through the window like it was before. I mean, the wind normally comes from this way, so it's normally okay, but just in case, yeah, it makes this nice and dry. So to do this, we just got some screws and this drill. Luckily, these bits here are actually quite thick, so we can get a good screw through, because if it was just this here, it's really thin and flimsy, as you can see. It's falling apart, but I just want to cover up the window. Don't take any tips from this. This is not how to DIY. Honestly, I'm not made for DIY, but I try my best. There we go. I will say this is not my best bit of DIY I've done for the goats because the climbing frames are way better. But this, to be fair, is pretty good. The only problem is, yeah, the windows are pretty solid, but the wall is falling apart. Yeah, there we go. Sick. To be fair, from back here it doesn't actually look too bad. And if you've been watching the shorts, you will know that this was actually part of the gate. It was used as support like down there, but I replaced it for this smaller bit of wood. And yeah, no, that's a lot better. Now I thought it would be a good time to go over the pallets out the front of the sheds, as they don't really look that incredible, but they do a very important role. So for a bit of context, every time I put straw in their sheds, a bit of it will get eaten, a bit of it will be for sleeping on, and then a bit of it will get kicked out the shed, and that's why the pallets are there. When it rains, all the excess straw that's left out gets really wet and just generally quite horrible. This can be very bad for the goats because constantly walking on the wet, mushy and soggy ground can cause them to have hoof rot, and it is generally just quite unpleasant. So the pallets are just here as something to walk across to stop the goats going through it. Just a quick one, this is their climbing frame. Now this is probably one of the coolest things in their field. It's got their main hay feeder on it, it's amazing, it does everything I need it to do, and the goats absolutely love it. Now at the bottom of the field there is also this climbing frame here. It's not as good as my other one, but we're going to be working on it in the next few days to make it a lot bigger and better. So with that done, the goat shed's looking a lot better and it stopped Henry from eating all the tarpaulin. Now, without the tarpaulin, the shed's looking a lot better, but it's given me an idea for a new shed expansion. And that'll all be to do with expanding shed space for the goats for a new upcoming project. And that kind of all revolves around more shed space for the goats. Either that would be adding an expansion to the front of the shed, or making these boxes in the climbing frames waterproof, so they can be used as sheds as separation from those two. Now for that I would like to see if I can build something that is really good but also really cheap and effective and easy to make. But I've got to think about that because it's going to be a bit interesting to do if I want to base it off a pallet, right? Now in the future I would like to do a cheap versus expensive goat shed video, as there's pros and cons to both of the sheds behind behind me. So I think that'll be really cool. But what we've done today for the shed on the left is actually pretty awesome, and it's a good start to kind of fixing this shed up and making it a bit better. In an ideal world, I would replace this shed for one of these, but I want to see how much we can do for free basically and kind of DIY to improve this shed, as I think that'll be a really awesome project. Also, if you're interested in what the goats get up to in the summer and how my care for them changes, check out this video here.